All right, we are rolling. Happy Friday, and welcome to another installment of Get a Klu in 52 for speakers or speaker edition. I am Jeff Klubeck with my co-host, co-author, friend, colleague, client, all the identities, Sue Mathieson. How are you, Sue? How's your week been?
I'm really well, thanks, Jeff. Great to be here. How's my week been? It's interesting. I was just reflecting on. It's easy to get caught up in negative stuff and to focus on what's missing, what we don't have. And I've been challenging myself to flip that around and go, okay, what do I have? What can I be grateful for? And the other day, it was a really good exercise for me to sit down and map out what opportunities have I got, say, over the next 2 or 3 weeks? What can I focus on? What can drive me a little bit more to go, okay, let's just park what the negative bit is and let's focus on what's possible. What can I do? What can I help to make myself feel better and feel really good about achieving some stuff? And
so many
it was just a really helpful exercise.
So many catchphrases come to mind when you say that, like worry is a waste of our imagination, or Tom Petty has this lyric, like most of the things I worry about never happen anyway, or we become what we think about, or think about what you do want instead of what you don't want. Or one of my favorites from a mentor, Brian Tracy, who taught me early on in my career, weeds grow on their own. Yes. They don't need our help.
No.
Right? The good stuff needs our help. Right? So awesome, Sue. Thanks for that sharing to get us started. I am Jeff Klubeck, founder and author of The Integrity
That's my week.
Game.
And what about you?
Oh, well, all right. Thanks for asking. You know what? I turned 52 so Get a Klu in 52, right? So now Get a Klu is 52. On Monday, I turned 52 years old. It took me 52 years to become this overnight sensation. I don't know. I've had a serious week of reflection, the time warp, the midlife stuff. My wife is out of town again this week. She's in Paris this time. So Marianne, if you're watching somewhere out there, hope you're doing well. Say hello to the Eiffel Tower for me and get home safe. But I'm hanging out with the kids and on spring break, and I'm back on campus teaching the classes, and there's just a lot of full circle stuff happening in my life, right? I'm excited. There's lots of opportunities brewing, lots of good relationships, conversations. But Get a Klu in 52 is what we talk about every week, all these tips that we're developing. But this week, right, Get a Klu turned 52, or like Jeff Klubeck, I turned 52. So happy birthday to me.
Congratulations.
And, as always, I'm in my Friday celebratory, jovial mood. And let's go ahead and get into what our programming is for today. So we know that we're Get a Klu in 52. Oh, there we go. All right. So what we want to do, I'm just going to take a moment to set this up. The very first Get a Klu in 52 book I wrote was this one. 5 categories, 52 tips. But the categories here were accountability, communication, marketing, networking, and sales. We read these tips online every week in 2020. Then in 2022, we did the Entrepreneur Edition with my co-author, Vipul Dayal. And the 5 categories here were personal branding, business acumen, business ownership, leadership and influence, and work-life balance. And we read these every single week in 2022. Then last year in 2023, we had the coaching edition, Get a Klu in 52 for coaches. And the 5 categories here were kind of organized chronologically. Self-promotion, then engagement, then motivation, then accountability, then practice building. And so that leads us up to this 4th edition of a Get a Klu in 52 book, Get a Klu in 52 for speakers with yourself, Sue. So it's fantastic to have you collaborate with me on this project. I have a lot of these tips all the time, right? But adding your voice and our effort to capture the mentor-mentee relationship, we wanted to try to get people to visualize what it would be like to be in a full day, 2 full day immersion with a coach, a mentor, a leader, right? And you represent all that's good about thirst for personal professional growth, and it's just great to encapsulate. So not only do we have tips in here for speakers, of course, but 60% of the book is for speakers or non-speakers alike. It's really just the 20 tips in the middle that are really kind of just for speaking. But the rest of this is applicable far and wide, industry agnostic or profession or skill set agnostic. We're trying to make sure that this is valuable for everybody. So the 5 categories that Sue and I have organized for our book as a matter of review is we started off with playing the integrity game, and just shout out, like, the integrity game is another book that I wrote, and it turned 2 years old on April 7th. So the integrity game saw its 2-year birthday about a week ago or so. And what we did was we took the 10-tip model, the 10-point model from the integrity game, and we made it section 1 for structural integrity, for foundation, for building your practice, building your acumen, building your career, or advancing your career through speaking, or building your career as a speaker. So 10 tips on structural integrity, foundation, base level stuff. And again, these tips are applicable for speakers and non-speakers alike. Now we're in section 2. And the section here is bring out your brand. And once you've got a foundation, right, now you can decorate it or paint it or landscape it, right? So that's what we're talking about. We can let the marketplace know what to expect from us. So a review of these tips is coming in just a second. I just want to preview section 3 in this book will be fearless, right? We're going to have 10 tips on actual writing of speeches. Now that we've got our foundation, now that we've got our brand, now we're ready to organize content into persuasive or informative formats, and on and on and on. Everything about speech writing. And one of those steps is so important that we broke it down into its own section, 10 tips on elements, forms, and functions of the epicenter of speech prep is outlining, organizing your thoughts in that structure that we talked about. And then finally, we'll end the year on practice building, 12 tips on taking the desire to speak to the skill set to speak to the practice of speaking, maybe into, right, maybe even on the way to business building around public speaking. All right, so we'll be ready to talk about that. Now, as far as bring out your brand is concerned, we started this section that we're in right here, tip number 11, with don't be a spectator. We wanted to make sure you guys understand branding is an active process, not a passive process. And even if you're passive, you're still branding, because branding is all about letting the marketplace know what to expect from you. And if you're passive about it, then the marketplace either knows to expect nothing from you or to expect passivity from you, on and on. And there's more that we had to say about that. Then we moved to tip number 12, which was the difference beyond the obvious, that one is a noun and the other is a verb, right? What is the real difference between a brand and branding? Clearly, one is the promise to the marketplace, the message, and the other is how we get the message out to the marketplace. And we start to think about what can we promise to the marketplace, and what segments of the marketplace do we need to identify in order to identify the right channels and the pathways to get the messages to them, right? So we're starting to understand, how would we promote ourselves as a speaker? How do we differentiate as a speaker? How do we let the world know that we speak, we can speak, we're available to speak, hire a speaker, on and on. So now we're getting into this formula. Tip number 13 is Sue, this warms my heart, because this is my silly, jovial, kind of wacky-minded self, right? Is to take arithmetic, right? And I joke around and say, I have math envy. I'm such a communication guy. But we have to sometimes lean into our fears, right? And I took these functions of basic arithmetic and used it to communicate a branding formula that I've used successfully with clients all around the world. As a matter of fact, the very beginning of the book has advanced praise for the book and Coach Jeffrey and what I do as a speaker, mentor, trainer for speakers. And all of these testimonials are from people all over the world that I worked with using this formula to get there. I would show up and they would invested a bunch of money in going to speak on a big stage. And I'm like, all right, hey, I'm here, your coach, 2-3 days. What do you want to talk about? And they would be like, well, that's what you're for. Oh, man. So, right. Yeah. So we'd have to start from the, like, imagine whiteboard, like, hey.
Yeah, start from the beginning.
I didn't have a speech to coach them on, right? I had to first bring out their brand. Then I could write a speech around it. So I developed this formula. And it's B equals MP divided by P's times CA's minus J plus S. So tip number 13 was to introduce this equation as a whole from a high level, right? And now what we did after that, starting last week, is we started to break down certain elements of this equation. So first of all, B is for brand. We talked about that and brand versus branding the week before. But then when introducing tip 13, we talked about the marketplace. The marketplace being the totality of people that we can set expectations for. You know, what are all the people in the world? Customers, clients, vendors, committee members, colleagues, cohorts, partners, employers, right? Contract. What's the totality of the marketplace that we have an opportunity to
say? Yeah, and I'll jump in and just say that would be based on our life experiences and professional and business experiences. Well, we want them to be relevant to who
even wider than that to start off, right? Even wider than that, like the whole giant pizza, not just a slice or a quarter pie or a half pie, like the whole thing, right? You can see every pepperoni on this pizza, right? And then when we advance, we divide. You see the division symbol there. Is this pizza, the marketplace starts to get divided by the promises we can make to the marketplace. So that's what took us to last week, tip number 14. We wanted to break down what counts as a promise. And we talked about a couple of things, right? The ask qualities, right? We want it to be attention gaining. We want it to be sensational. We want it to be something we can keep, right? And then, of course, once we're getting really good, we want it to involve pleasure and pain. We want it to on and on. We went into detail about the elements, what counts as a promise from a marketing perspective when we're bringing out our brand, right? And now what that brings us to, going back 1 second, just going back to this other piece, now the next piece in the equation is CAs. So I'm going to set this up and then we'll get into reading word for word. Okay, Sue? So the marketplace is the whole pizza. It's cut into slices by the promises we can make. So maybe people that plan their events, their own events, maybe I can make a certain promise to that person. I promise I can increase the engagement, credibility, and revenue at your event with my Coach Jeffrey brand. Well, what if it's somebody that owns an HR company and all they provide is transactional HR services? Now I can promise, hey, you can stop leaving money on the table when your decision makers are complaining about personnel and you don't have anything on your menu to address it. Right, on and on. Yeah. So in other words, once I know what promises I can deliver, what I'm, pleasure and pain of my market segments, promises I'm capable of making and keeping. Now, when I get comfortable about that, now amplify, multiply. The next function is multiplication. So I think amplify, multiply, right? Yeah. And so my promises are going to be amplified, multiplied, megaphoned, shout from rooftops if I know what my competitive advantages are. So today's tip, having talked last week about what counts as a promise, now we want to move on in this equation and really talk about competitive advantages. And so by title, this tip is called Difference Making Differentiation. Now, before we get into reading word for word, Sue, do you have any comments or questions or anything to add to my setup for today's tip?
No, I think you've really covered it. Because you've talked about don't be a spectator and what that involved. You've referred back to some of the acronyms that we had talked to in the previous tips that we'd covered. So I really think you've summarized it beautifully. So
well,
I think
thank you.
And straight into it.
Yeah, well, it dawns on me also that as we're writing the book, we also want to create that transition from one tip to the other. So even though I've set it up, what we're about to read word for word may be repetitive a little bit in how we're trying to make sure our audience can follow along. What tip are we in? How did we get to this tip? And where are we going in the rest of the book is what I was trying to do. Because public speaking is partly one of our jobs as speakers is ushers or escorts. Like, right this way to the next point, please. Right this way to the next nugget, please. Right this way to the meaning of the speech, please. Right this way to the... We're not just speaking, but we are escorting our audience with us every step of the way. So we'll get into more of that when we get into later sections. But for now, let's go ahead and get into tip number 15, page 73. If you're reading at home, get a clue, in 52 for speakers with my co-host, co-author, a bunch of stuff, Sue Mathieson from all the way down under. Here we go. In understanding more of what counts as a promise, we have addressed a bigger portion of the formula B equals MP divided by P's times CAs minus J plus S. That's a mouthful. Moving right along, Sue is ready to learn more. Go ahead, Sue.
And I was asking, Jeff, I'm feeling better about promises and believe I can generate them. But what about this multiplied by CA's piece? Can you elaborate on that part of the equation?
Boy, can I. Thought you'd never ask, Sue. All right, here we go. Back into the word for word. This part of the formula is only a little curly. Wait for it, or better yet, humor me as I take the time to set this up. First, some irony about differentiation. This is the thing. First, some irony about differentiation. Identification both equals and does not equal differentiation. I'm being intentionally contradictory when saying that, quote, identification both equals and fails to equal differentiation. This is because the laws of physics are different than the rules of branding. Again, stay with, humor me here. In physics, your fingerprint is enough to identify you, because we all know that two sets of fingerprints are not. There's a typo there. Are not the same, or no two sets. It's correct. Let me read. I'm getting so excited. I'm going fast. Let me slow down. In physics, your fingerprint is enough to identify you, because we all know that no two sets of fingerprints are the same. By definition, according to the laws of physics, your identification is what technically separates you from other people. Literally, by definition, unique equals different. In branding, however, being unique is not enough by itself to establish the differentiation we need. Unless you are the only game in town, the rules of branding require you to be competitive in order to have differentiation. It isn't enough to simply ask potential clients to tell you apart from the competition, when the success of your brand and your business is to get potential clients to choose you from among your competition. In tip number 8 of this section, the S in SWOT analysis asks you to get honest about all your strengths and suggests that strengths create competitive advantages. But here in this tip, we need to go just a bit deeper. You must answer 2 critical questions to know your competitive advantages. First, better, question mark. In one word, better, question mark. Of all the things that both you and your competition do, which of them do you do better? Of all the things both you and your competition have, which of yours are better than what your competition has? Better pricing, better service, better quality, better selection, better convenience, better experience. Which is better, and better how? Question number 2, different, in one word, different, question mark. Of all the people that compete with you, what do you have or do that they do not have or do? Again, your own name, social security number, business name, or tax ID number is not enough to satisfy this question in context. In fact, both questions require you to answer from the perspective of the customer. Remember, your speaking has to deliver on that brand promise, or failure to deliver becomes the promise. So we recommend knowing, developing, and/or promoting as many competitive advantages as you possibly can in your marketing. Beware. This tip is easier to understand than it is to implement. Again, you have to come up with as many answers as you possibly can to both of the above questions, and you will have the ingredients you need. I have personally helped dozens of entrepreneurs from 12 countries establish personal and company brands by forcing, not physically, but forcing, right, through inquiry and coaching and good communication, by forcing them to get clear on their promises and competitive advantages. I love this work mostly for the steps that come after the discovery of promises and advantages, which is sloganeering and wordsmithing. But let me catch my breath. Sue, what say you?
Oh my, there is a lot in this tip. Are you able to put what I need to remember, given that there's so much, in one sentence? Please?
That's, by the way, first of all, before I do that, let me laugh at the fair game poke. Like, Jeff, that's a lot. Jeff, you're so verbose. Jeff, how about one sentence, please? Okay, I received that. I love it. I love it. Okay, but here we go. Sure, here you go. Your competitive advantages are all the reasons someone will hire you to speak instead of another speaker. With 2 sentences, no, that was a careful pause, right? With 2 sentences, I'd add that you must Thank you. If I had two sentences, here's what I'd say. I'm being so silly here, right? And by the way, I got a good word. I got a word to share for you that I came up with like as I was waking up this morning, and I shared it with one person earlier today, and I'm just in that identity right now. I'll share it after we finish the word for word. But let me go ahead and start. All right, so you asked, can you do that in one sentence? Here we go. Sure, here you go. In one sentence, your competitive advantages are all the reasons someone will hire you to speak instead of another speaker. But if I had two sentences, I'd add that you must have an updated command of all the things you do better than all the other speakers that also do it, and all of the things you do that no other speaker does. If you'll grant me a third sentence, is that funny? I hope that's funny. If you'll grant me a third sentence, I would also add that if you do not like your current competitive advantages, make a commitment to develop new competitive advantages. A question isn't a sentence, right? So I'm still teasing, like I'm totally like defending myself in text for this like ribbing that you gave me. Like, all right, Jeff, can you take that down to one sentence? Well, obviously the answer is no, because it's too important. I have too much to say. I'm too excited about it, right? But here we go. A question isn't a sentence, right? Smiley face. So what do you want to do better than every other speaker? What could you do that no other speaker can do? How will you compete? What are your advantages? So there it is in questions form rather than sentence form. And let me ask you, Sue, what, in your opinion, are my competitive advantages as a speaker? Why would you want me to speak at your event compared to anybody else?
And in answering that, there were three things that come to mind immediately. It's your humor. And we see that every Friday as we come together and talk through the tips. But word for word, listening to you is always entertaining. Your content is full of amazing information, wisdom, and finally, the connection you create with your audience. Even when challenging an audience, you still bring warmth and vulnerability. Reflecting on what I consider to be some of your CAs, and how the formula is pieced together, and repeating it as B equals MP divided by Ps, multiplied by CAs, taking away the J and adding the S. I am beginning to really feel the energy and vibration that comes from a well thought out brand promise.
Well, obviously, thank you, by the way, Sue. Those are kind words. The joke here, by the way, before I finish this last little thing that transitions us into the next tip, I always remember at my wedding, and I had my brother as best man, and then my really, really, really good friend at the time, he was like best man status at the time, Gordon Ellicott, shout out to Gordon, and he was co-best man. And, I just honored him with all of the visibility. He wanted it so bad to be co-best man along with my brother. And yeah, you could do the speech. Yeah, sure. Whatever. Yeah, do a speech. And he gets to this point in the speech, Sue, and what you were saying up here reminded me of this, right? When you're like, oh, your humor and listening to you and your content and your wisdom and it reminds me of when he spoke, and he's like, Jeff, as a friend, you're blah, blah, you're amazing. You're warm. You're listening. Oh, and what does this say, Jeff? I can't read your writing. Anyway, so after like a series of compliments, his joke that he put in there, he's like, oh, and what does it say? I can't read your writing. And anyway, the joke is, thank you, Sue. You read our writing perfectly. But no, that comes from your heart, obviously, and it warms mine.
It does.
So very great, Sue. That means we're ready to move on to the next tip and next piece of my formula, which has us confront our own jargon. Let's get started, as it says here, word for word. But for those of you out there, you got to wait till next Friday, and we're going to figure out, and I put the equation on the board right here, brand equals the marketplace, first of all, divided into segments by our different promises that we're capable of making and keeping. Now we'll amplify those promises and shout them from the rooftops if we're aware of our competitive advantages. We'll amplify, multiply, shout from the rooftops, right? We'll spray on all the marketing channels that make sense and on and on and on. But what we're going to get into next week is we got to get out of our own way. And just to preview this a little bit, the curse of knowledge is when we're so familiar with something that we've forgotten what it's like not to know. And there's other reasons that are ego-driven that we kind of pull the the blanket of jargon over ourselves to stay warm and comfortable in our our bed of knowledge. So what a coach will help you do, especially a communications coach that is jovial and silly and fun and wordsmithy like I am, is we're going to make sure that you get rid of, you subtract the jargon. Then we know the marketplace, we know the segments, we know the promises, we know the advantages. And with all of those ingredients on the table, if we could just eliminate the jargon, now we're going to be able to replace it with slogan and sloganeering. And so that's where we're headed for the next 2 tips. But for now, what do you say, Sue? We're done reading the tip word for word. What do you, comments, questions, feedback? Thank you for adding your voice in this project, which really brings everything out so beautifully. What do you have to say about today's tip, number 15? Making differentiation.
I do have a question, but before I get into that, you referenced a word. What was your word that you came up with?
Oh God, are you ready? Oh my God, I think it's so good I should create a banner for it. Is that fair? No?
Go for it.
All right. Why hire, oh, this is so good. Why hire are you ready? Facilitator when you can hire a facilitator. Oh, so good. Are you ready? Why hire a facilitator when you can hire a facilitator? Need him to laugh? Hire Klu back. Need to laugh their way to the learning? Do you need somebody that's going to be so vulnerable from the front of the room that everybody in their seats can relax a little bit? Why hire a facilitator when you can hire a facilitator? Am I communicating brand promise? Right? It's just silliness, right? But that's who I am, right? I think a lot. I have a lot of heavy stuff on my mind. So humor's my own personal therapy, coping mechanism. And I learned that when I need to get people past the fear of public speaking, that humor is probably the best tool in my toolbox. But here I am. I'm not a facilitator. I'm a facilitator. We're going to have fun. Because if I'm not having fun or helping people, I'm not interested. There you go, Sue. There you have it. You asked.
I did ask, and I love it. And what it shows to me is that vulnerability when you really know yourself so well that you can play, you can bring elements of who you are into that space of being funny, being a little bit silly, but you do it in a way that you can come back to that serious too. You can bring your audience into that place of, oh, no, hang on, let's come back to where we need to focus. And it just, to me, it appeals to all the senses because you're jovial, you're funny, you're playful.
And looks aren't everything, by the way. No, that's another.
So yeah, I think it's fabulous. But it to me, the biggest thing too is it comes from that place of you know yourself so well that you have that confidence to bring that.
It's also a function, just to be fair, right? It's also a function of I'm coming from more abundance, right? It's like an abundance of knowledge about myself, abundance of work I've done on myself, but it's also an abundance of experience that I've got. And I'm sure that I might not have taken as many chances 15 years ago, right? Because you can tell you 15 years ago, coming out of one of the worst economies since the Great Depression, when I built my coaching business in 2007, 8, 9, 10, when everybody was losing their houses. My wife and I had 2 short sales on properties. We had 3 properties. We were able to hang on to one and come out of that whole thing. Like, I was building my coaching practice in that environment. There's a lot of scarcity, a lot of nervousness. The economy was struggling. The banks were crashing, and the election was coming on, and it was a gnarly time, right? And at that point, my thinking might have been, don't tell a joke, you might lose the client, or your bank account doesn't have enough in it to be that vulnerable right now, or so I just want to be clear that it's a function of my experience, the work I've done on myself, all the mistakes I've made, the abundance I've built, the fact that, my life and my livelihood and my next meal isn't hanging on one client. I got a lot going on, and I'm very blessed and fortunate. So it's a function of all of those things. And so, it's not just, it's a little bit of, gift, of course, but I've invested in my gifts and cultivated my gifts, and I step into my gifts rather than suffocate them. And this is one of the things that we talked about in the integrity game in section 1 of the book. And
Yes.
yeah, I feel like I'm in a sweet spot now. Like back to what we talked about in the beginning of the conversation. I'm 52 years old. I've been doing this for a while. And I don't have to think about driving anymore. I just drive. Do you know what I'm saying? In a lot of this, I don't have to think about what I'm doing. I just let myself be, because what I'm really focused on is who I'm talking to. I'm focused on the audience. I have more brain power, more bandwidth available to read the room, feel for my audience, and trust that what's going to come out is so heart-centered and coming from a land of so much experience and practice and work and effort that, right? I kind of forgive myself up front for any mistakes I'm willing to make.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. But go ahead.
And I think that what I really appreciate about that too is, yes, it's coming out of that abundance. But again, what you've done is taken those learnings that you've been able to work through and apply in your own life, and you've created that integrity framework.
Yeah.
And now, as you share that, and certainly as I've been able to journey with you and learn that for myself, apply it in my own life,
things are getting better.
That abundance, even gets better, because now, it's in print in the original Integrity Game book. It's here in the first section of the tips that we work through. And I guess to a large degree, you are living proof. I'm becoming living proof of when you apply that framework, you do find that abundance in your own life. And so when you are speaking, you bring that flavor of who you are in a really fun way. You've got that opportunity.
Oh, it's great. And just to be more vulnerable, it comes from just wanting to be a better person. I didn't write the integrity game because I think I'm the expert, right? I wrote it because I want to be a better person. I want more integrity in my life. I want to retrofit myself. And I thought, well, as long as I'm doing this, why don't I invite everybody to play with me? So I'm going to go ahead and invite the world to retrofit themselves. And we're going to promise non-threatening accountability. And it's easy for me to promise non-threatening accountability when I'm so jovial and so silly and so humorous, right? It's like, what's so threatening about all this humor, and want to get people's guard down. We're having heavy conversation about building our careers, overcoming the fear of public speaking, or risking our career on a speaking engagement, or or questions of purpose, gifts, potential that we talked about in section 1 of the book. I mean, the truth is, we're talking about very difficult stuff that most people want to avoid. And oh man, clock's ticking. I'm telling you, I hear a clock in my head every day now. Tick tock, tick tock. I'm 52. I'm on, the wrong side of 100, right? And most people don't live to 100. Most men live to 78. And I'm starting to get into this phase of my life where, damn, we got stuff to do. We don't have time to mess around, and or we have plenty of time to retrofit and optimize, right? To evolve and reproduce, and to retrofit and optimize. And so if I can talk serious with you, yeah, sure, I can tell you what the deep thoughts are and use the big words, but let's go. The world needs us. The world needs to be vibrating at this level, right? And so getting it back to the serious, I still have this banner up about difference making differentiation. And so getting back into something serious here, because as I'm reading word for word, I don't know if it comes out, and let me just take a second to make sure we understand that the irony piece, identification does not equal differentiation. It does in physics, but not in branding. Okay. You get my DNA sample, you get my saliva sample, you prick my blood or get my fingerprint, and you can identify me as a different creature on this planet from every other creature on the planet. But you'll know nothing about whether or not you should hire me for the problem that you need solved. So identification, like in physics, it differentiates, but not in marketing and not in branding. So us as speakers, we need to identify the differentiation that's competitive. That's what, so we need difference making differentiation. When I've asked people, Sue, I'm like, hey, I'll ask people for fun, and I know what I'm doing, and it's like, I'm not trying to be mean, but I cringe when I hear some of these answers, right? I'm not trying to be mean and to anybody, right? So if you're ever out there and networking, have an answer to this question before I come and ask it. Hey, why do people hire you instead of your competition? And then here's where I cringe. Are you ready? Oh, because I really care about my customers. Oh, why do people hire you? Why do people hire you instead of your competition? Oh, because we believe in integrity. They're saying the same bland stuff that all the competition is also saying. There's no differentiation. People don't know, right? The people don't know actively the difference between features or qualities of what they do and then what differentiates them from everybody else. We're talking about competitive differentiation, difference making differentiation. So I just wanted to make sure that I went a little deeper on that point in case the reading of word for word of it went by too quick. In physics, my fingerprint can differentiate me, but in branding, I better be competitive to differentiate myself.
Yeah. And on that, when I was doing some research around who are some of the speakers globally that are recognized as being standout speakers. And you've got Brené Brown, to name a few, Brené Brown, Simon Sinek, Mel Robbins. And what I noticed with them is that when you look at their profiles and what makes them a standout, there's reference made in the description that they've been on the TED platform or the TEDx platform. I also noticed that there's a lot of marketing out there, how to get you to TEDx speech, how to get on a platform. And I'm interested to what your thoughts are. Is that not necessarily a competitive advantage if, say, me as an aspiring speaker allow myself to get caught up in that? And am I getting a little bit sidetracked because someone else has done that and they're incredibly successful globally? Is it actually detracting from my own true competitive advantages? Interested on your thoughts on that.
Yes and no. You ready? If I understand your question correctly, first of all, if I understand your question correctly, it's if we're aspiring emerging speakers, if we see ourselves as capable of speaking, wanting to grow and speak, naturally, we're going to look at the best of the best, right? Like we may not, if not for people doing it really well, we might not even want to do it ourselves unless there was something to look to aspire to. And so if I understand your question correctly, does looking to these people that are polished, seasoned, and world famous, etc., does getting, I honed in on caught up, does getting caught up in that dilute my own brand and the work that I need to do for myself? First of all, did I understand your question correctly?
Well, yes, in the sense of, is it because there's this commonality that I picked up on of them being TED speakers, is it sometimes a bit of a trap that we get caught up, oh, I have to do that thing for me to be successful, and so it detracts from our true essence?
Okay. Well,
Or is there a little bit of interplay?
Yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and no, and no, and no. Yep. Okay. All right. Everything's multi-determined. Okay. But first of all, let me just say this. Hey, you all out there, I see some eyeballs popping in the eyeball counter. Jump in, join the conversation. Come on into the StreamYard and get into this. If you have questions or if you have answers to what Sue is asking, I'm not the only expert in town. If you have something to say and contribute to the topic, everybody's invited to join the party. You can see the link there to come on into the StreamYard. We'll be online I'll ask for last call in about 5-10 minutes. Depending on how long it takes me to answer this question Sue's put on the table, because there's a lot to unpack in her question. But come on in and join us. You're welcome to join us, not just today, but any week, right? I'll always have the link available, and so we'd love to see more people in the conversation. Now, Sue, first of all, this is why we play the integrity game, okay? You follow? Do you remember, the integrity game? What's your purpose, right? What are your competitive advantages? What's your potential? You have to answer autobiographically. right? If you've retrofitted yourself and gone through the steps, right? What are your goals as a speaker? What strategies, tactics, and resources have you selected? This is internal work that you're doing before you look, or either after you get inspired by looking at the best of the best. Now you got to do internal work. Build your foundation, play the integrity game, get your structural integrity. So this is autobiographical internal work, like with the door shut, the blinds drawn, light the candle, burn the incense, whatever you need to do to get inside. This is inner work. The answer to these questions: what's your purpose on this planet? What are your gifts and competitive advantages, right? That we come back to from a branding sense, but we want to just understand who you are on this planet, first of all, as part of the integrity game. Then we come back to gifts when we talk about competitive advantages, right? Now, what's your potential? Have you looked out as far into your life as you could possibly see? What do you see? Now, have you come back to establish a mission that you're on to prove that you're on your way to that life? And now, what are your annual objectives? Now, if these gurus that you're looking for are in those pictures, then cool, right? You follow for proper reasons, but you're still answering autobiographically about what you need to do by April 1st, July 1st, October 1st, and January 1st. In order to get where you need to go. You're still choosing among everything available to you in terms of strategies, tactics, and resources, because you're going to have to get into action and be your word, right? You're going to have to make commitments and get into action, whether you're looking at the gurus or not, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's where it gets You're like, so in other words, yes, if you're looking at them too much, you're going to miss out on the autobiographical work that you need to do to retrofit yourself. Follow? The other thing too is you might try to do what they're doing. But if somebody tries to do what I'm doing right now, I'm 52 years old with 20 years in the game. One definition of success is just creating different problems for yourself. So I'm doing different things now than I did 15 years ago.
Yes.
Okay. But back to finishing my review of the integrity game, right? Are we committed to learning proactively? What do I need to learn? So in looking at these gurus, instead of saying, I need to do what they're doing, I might want to say instead, I need to know how to do what they're doing before I commit to doing what they're doing. I need to study what they're doing. I need to look, what's my learning path? What do I need on and on? So I'm trying to stay grounded and stay, right? What have I accomplished? What is my level of success? The way I'm looking to these people, who's looking to me? My students this week, Jeff, how do you have so much confidence? My students in class, these 18-year-olds, they're looking to me. I could look to a Gary Vee or a Grant Cardone or a Tony Robbins and see the level of fame and notoriety they've achieved and want to. I'm not trying to do what they're doing. I'm trying to do what's in front of me and get to my neck. And I'm playing my integrity game, believing I'll get there. So I need to look for them for inspiration. But here's what I want to say, said another way. And by the way, who am I serving? Right?
Yes.
If I try to be them, am I serving? Who am I serving if I try to be them? They're already serving their audience. Do I want to serve their audience, or is there a different audience? So maybe I need to take pieces of them, right? And then leave the rest behind. And do you follow? There's aspects of Tony Robbins' work that, I'm not delivering to my audience. There's aspects of what Grant Cardone does that I'm not delivering to my audiences. Gary Vee does things, and Simon Sinek does things that they all do things that I want to do. But they all do things, there's differences too. So how do we find those differences? We need to answer our own questions and play the integrity game, right? But the other thing is all of that is to say this, right? To tease myself again, say this. I see. All right, Jeff, can you say all of that in one sentence, please?
Can you say it in one sentence?
Yeah, instead of getting caught up in all of that, focus on catching up to all of that.
Yes. Yeah.
If I focus on that and get caught up in it, I will fail to catch up to it. And what is it? It's a level of notoriety. It's a level of achievement. It's not one particular person, right? So instead of caught up, how about the catch up? How about we just stay humble a little bit, recognize where we are, and have faith in our own journey? Inspired by whoever we're inspired by, but not caught up in. I got too much catching up to do to be caught up in anything.
Yes.
Here we are, Get a Clue in 52 for speakers.
Thank you. I really, really found that answer helpful in the sense of it highlights to me the importance of doing our own journey, playing the integrity game, not allowing that shiny object stuff to get in the way, to take us off on a tangent that is not being true to ourselves.
Correct.
And
We'll get distracted by it if we haven't played the integrity. If we don't have our structural integrity, if we haven't done the inner work, we're going to get distracted by everything bright and shiny. I sat down with a client of mine last week. He's like, hey man, I did a post the other day about my best speaker ribbon. I'm like, oh yeah, I was in Toastmasters over a decade ago, bringing my kids to Toastmasters meetings with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's work. People want the pictures, they want the lights, they want the video of themselves on stage, but all of this work to do, right? So we're trying to make it easy, trying to make it digestible, positioning ourselves to help people out. As a matter of fact, it's time to let everybody know right before last call, that we've got a BOYB, a Bring Out Your Brand report, free report. It's one of those deals. You give us your email, we'll give you a PDF that's well put together, that's got some value in there, that leads you to booking a free strategy call, right? So either Sue, myself, or somebody I've trained will be available to work with you for free. You just give us your email, get the report, and if you like the report and you want to talk to a live human being to ideate, brainstorm, calibrate, retrofit, soundboard, sloganeer, wordsmith your brand, we're here. We want to hang out. We want to meet with you. We want to talk with you. You can tell how pumped up I get when I get to be creative and help people bring out their brands. And so this is a funnel, right? It's called a marketing funnel. You give us your email address. We'll give you something valuable and hope you keep on going down to where we can actually work with you in a meaningful way. So free report, bring out your brand. And then the other thing too, Sue, I have to update you on this announcement that we made last week. We asked everybody to save the date, June 25th, right? Because we believed a week ago that we were going to do a Bring Out Your Brand workshop, right? Well, in the work that I've done to put this together, it has evolved to, are you ready? Drum roll, please. Save the date for Authors Hour with Jeff Klubeck and Sue Mathieson, but it's not just going to be me and you. We're working on putting together a panel of other authors that we can invite, aspiring and emerging authors, to come to the University Club. This is an event that I created in 2022. I held like 4 or 5 different four versions of them. But what we're going to, it's because we want to do the event at the University Club because that's the best place to get our pictures, our videos, and so forth, right? I got a lot of updates for you on this since the last time we talked, but it's going to be Authors Hour. You're going to be one of the featured authors on a panel. And I might be a featured author on the panel, or I might be the host bringing out everybody's brand that's on the panel, including yours. So I could talk about Integrity Game or our collaborative book, but also bring out the brands of 2 or 3 other authors that we're going to get on the panel, members of my same club. The club is going to give us the room for free if we create a valuable event that benefits the club. And we're also going to, are you ready? I believe we're going to raise money for the Lamp of Learning Scholarship. So my idea is authors, we get our books for very little money, right? We can get authors' copies. So if I just do the math, if I buy 100 of these books for $5 a piece, right? Then I donate them to the University Club. It's a $500 write-off for me. But now people that come to Authors Hour event, they can scan the QR code, make a donation to the Lamp of Learning, and take a signed copy of the book away. And so now I donate the books. And so if several authors are donating their books, now it's more valuable for guests to attend because there's a range of books to learn from, draw from, maybe the tips book or the parable or the academic kind of book, or right there's, and I'm networking with other authors at the club. And so I'm trying to make this a win for as many people as possible and still serve the original purpose, which is build an event around your visit to the United States. Because if you're in LA, that's too close not to come down to San Diego and create an event where we can get some pictures, we can get some video, and we can maybe change some lives, raise some money for a good cause, facilitate some networking. I want to get a videographer and a photographer up there to do headshots for people and capture video testimonials, and just, bring out the brands of fellow members of my club, raise money for the Lamp of Learning. Like I want to do all of it. How might save the date?
Fantastic.
June 25th. Yeah. This is what we're working on. And so now, having said all of that, you get a free report if you give us your email address, and save the date for June 25th so you can hang out with Sue and I at the University Club downtown. Having said all of that, here we are. Last call for comments, questions, jokes, riddles, haikus, limericks, or expressions of gratitude over today's tip, number 15 overall in Get a Clue and 52 for speakers.
Absolute gratitude. Really appreciate the detail that you went into and unpacking that question that I posed, and it's helpful because I know from a marketing perspective, I just get bombarded all the time with stuff, and it just,
to put it lightly,
it helps to go, you know what? No, I might aspire to that, but ask the question, does it fit with where I need to be right now? And if it doesn't, that's cool. I can let it go. So it's just really helpful. So
yeah, it's
much
I'm
appreciated.
back to the concept of structural integrity. A building, bridge, or tunnel will collapse under pressure tests without structural integrity. Well, so will we.
Yes,
so will individuals,
yes.
so will teams, so will organizations. So if I've got this structural integrity, then when a pressure test comes along and an opportunity to go invest in some program is a pressure test.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Pressure tests come, whether it's the weather that day or whether it, my daughter, I woke up on my birthday and I walked up and my daughter's back rear window was smashed and her computer was stolen out of it. So that's a pressure test. Can I still keep my schedule this day? Can I keep my head about me? Do we have everything in place to handle this with a mind like water? Can we handle this in a way where we neither underreact or overreact? We can if we've got structural integrity in the way that we handle our life and our family business. Does this make sense? Right? So anyway, I'm a big fan of the integrity game, of course, right? And the resilience. And it's like if it fits my game, it's a yes. And if it doesn't, it's a polite no. I'm empowered when I say yes, and I'm empowered when I say no, either way. But if I don't have answers to my own questions, then anything else that comes my way might be the answer.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. No, they're playing their own game.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And that's okay. And some of these things are going to work. Like I'm going to go to the Bahamas in 2 weeks. I'll tell you what, right? I'm being flown to the Bahamas and I'm going to be a supporting coach at an event for chiropractors that have hit ceilings in their businesses because they don't know how to market. And so there's these two chiropractors, Dr. Mike and Dr. Mark, I believe, and they figured out all of the digital marketing stuff for chiropractors. And they've been running this event once a year, every year for 10 years. And chiropractors come and they learn the ways and then they invest in the program and they go back and they up-level their businesses, right? So, my chiropractor that I see, I talked to her about it. I'm like, hey, I got engaged to go to this event. I'm going to be a speaker supporting coach for this 4-day event. And I'm going to learn what these guys are teaching chiropractors to get their business. She's like, oh, I see that event advertised all the time online. And I don't know if it's right for me. I'm like, okay, I don't know if it's right for you either, but I'm going to go find out and I'll come back with a report, right? And maybe next year, my chiropractor's at the same event. So sometimes it's right for us and sometimes it isn't. You follow? Yeah. Right? Because I talked to my chiropractor. She's like, Jeff, I saw you published another book and maybe I should write a book with you and maybe that'll get me to the next level. She saw bright and shiny. Are you with me?
Yes.
So I said, well, let's have coffee, please. Let's have coffee. Let's sit down. I start to talk to her and I told her, I'm like, after one conversation with you, you don't need a book yet. You might. But the book is not what you need. What you need is to renovate your strategic staffing so that you bring somebody in that can either pivot to the marketing task or you only hire for administrative and you hire separately for marketing. And then we need to be strategic about both so we can. It's a staffing and performance management issue that she's got. She's not ready for marketing yet. Are you with me?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So, she's seeing these advertisements come along and she's not ready to dive into that. If she went to that, it wouldn't land because she's not ready to implement it. She doesn't have the structural integrity for staff and personnel and the way her practice is organized to even implement it. So even if it looks good in Bahamas and, it works and the testimonials sound great and everything, if she went, she would come back and not be able to implement what she invests in. Does it make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Because, and it's interesting. I had, and I know we're getting close to wrapping up, but we're
in last call, by the way, for those of you still on. There's still eyeballs that are, I see some eyeballs. So hello, thanks for sticking with us out there.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was just going to say I had a similar experience with chatting with a lady who thought that she wanted to get into speaking. But as we had the conversation, we got to a point where we realized she needs to get systems and processes in place in her business first.
Right, because
it wasn't about the speaking.
Why turn on a fire hydrant of attention if you're not ready to support it all?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I've been slow in my growth, because systems and processes, I'm very like kind of logical, categorical in my thinking, but I'm not like an operations behavioral style. I'm not a IT operations compliance. It's not. So, I'm okay with some of those things not being done because it's not the highest and best use of my time, and I'm comfortable with my pace of growth. You follow, right? Until there's I'm getting better. I'm excited about the things that are getting put in place. But yeah, I've been hesitant to turn on the fire hydrant for fear at times in my career. This is years ago. For at times that I now I'm not so fearful. Like, hey, I know if all of a sudden I generate so much activity that I can't coach at all, I know that I've trained coaches. I know I've got other independent contractors I can lean on to handle and support and represent the brand and the way we do it. You know what I mean? But I've been working on this for a long time. But back to your original thing, and the answer to your question, do I get caught up in what I see everybody else doing? No, don't get caught up in it. Catch up to it. Right? And focus on the steps that you need to take on your journey, which will be illuminated if you've done the inner work of playing the integrity game.
Love it.
Yeah, well, it loves you too.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Comments, questions,
What
jokes?
What a great way to finish up. No, I think that's just a great way to finish up. And I just wanted to say, I hope you've had an amazing week celebrating your birthday.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I sometimes the birthday is a big deal. I remember 2 years ago on my birthday, I didn't celebrate it at all, except for going to Las Vegas to lock myself in a hotel room to get my thumbs to the point of like almost falling off, texting out the link to buy the integrity game for, right? I was like texting everybody that I knew under the sun, hey, the integrity game, we've just launched it. Get it now while it's only $5. And I'm sending the link to everybody. And next thing I know, I'll never forget, I looked and it was Amazon #1 bestseller. Like within a couple of hours of it releasing. And so I was by myself in a hotel room in Vegas, self-promoting my own book to get it to bestseller. I don't know. Sometimes my birthday is a big deal and sometimes it isn't, because, why every day? Why not so every day? I don't like Thanksgiving for the same reason I don't like my birthday. Like, why one day? Why don't we just celebrate every day? Every day, every day is above ground. It's worth celebrating. Like, why don't we jovial and celebratory and happy and focusing on what we do want instead of what we don't want every day? We just have to redefine what counts as a treat, right? Like yesterday I got chiro and massage. That was a treat. An hour and a half of self-care, getting adjusted and getting massage. That combination, chiro massage, that's a treat. I do that all the time, not just my birthday. You know what I'm saying? All right.
Yeah.
I took my youngest son to dinner last night, just me and my youngest 11-year-old at sushi, and slowly start to let him taste more adult level sushi rather than just the cucumber rolls. And so, it's a treat to myself watching his tastes evolve and mature and his mind open up to different, rather than being afraid of things. And I celebrate every day of my life, Sue. You know what I mean? Like, I teach classes at San Diego State. I get to go to San Diego State and teach classes, right? I interacted with one of the Oh, there we go. That was weird. Did you see a weird? Anyway, the thing is, I got to interview him. I got to interview him and his. I had there's a basketball player in my class last year, and I gave him an alternate assignment because of how much time he was missing in the classroom because they went all the way to the championship game. And I said, look, let me interview you and show you how much you know about organizational communication, and I'll give you a little extra credit for every classmate you invite. I mean, every teammate you invite to the interview. So there I was on Sunday night office hours interviewing my student and 6 of the players for San Diego State men's basketball. And they were superstars. They were getting all this attention, all this interviews, all these appearances, all this stuff after making it to the title game. And they still showed up on a Sunday night from 8 to 9:40 at night to be there for their teammate. And we talked about the integrity game and we talked about the organizational communication. And I let them show through their experience of that run how much they know about OrgCom and recruiter be recruited and media and all the things that they know about locker room maintenance, media coordination, the press, the appearances, the travel schedules, all of the moving parts around organizational communication. They have such a colorful experience, right? Anyway, and you never know. Like, I'm just being a professor. I didn't know, right? But I was able to run into those guys at football games and say, hey guys, thanks for being there for you. And I'd see them on campus. So earlier this week, they were. I walked by, hey guys, what's going on? Just a quick hello, and off I went. And then I got the news that Micah Parrish, I'm going to mention his name, he's going. And so I was able to send him a text message like, hey Micah, selfishly, I hope you come back, but congratulations, man. I hope you make it further forward. Go. You're always welcome, open arms. You come back to San Diego State. Selfishly, I would love for you to stay in Aztec forever, but I know you deserve the next level, man. I'm cheering for you 100%. And he responds back. I'm going to read this, dude. It's like, did I have a good birthday week? Are you ready? Not knowing, right? He says, and I'm going to read this word for word. This is Micah Parrish, right? Aztec, that men's basketball player, played in the championship game against University of Connecticut. They lost him this year again too. Anyway, but like one of my favorite Aztecs, and such a mensch, as we say in my culture, right? Like such a great representative in and out of the classroom. Anyway, he says, I gave him my words of encouragement, not knowing if he'll get it, not knowing if he'll read it, not knowing if he remembers me. He says, He replied back, yes, sir, I appreciate it. You had a big impact on my life while I was here, even though I wasn't ever in your class. I appreciate it. Thank you for what that means to me, or that means so much to me. So I had no idea, right? But I get this in my birthday week. I got that. You know what I'm saying? So I've had a pretty good week. My wife's out of town. I wish she were here. But even getting to be dad and getting to, prove to myself and my wife, like, hey, I can handle it. Go 2 weeks. Do your career, girl. I got it. Yeah, I'm teaching classes. Yeah, I'm building career. Yeah, I'm networking myself. Yeah, I'm in meetings. Yeah, I'm grading paper. Yeah, I'm raising the kids. I'm taking care of the dogs. I got it. So I'm having a good week by those standards, but it'd still be better if my wife was here. Anyway, thanks for asking. Anything else before we dismiss it? It's been wildly fun today. I don't want to go, but we do have to move on. Any last call? Anything else?
We do. Nothing else. It's just fabulous to. Yeah, I love these sessions. I love getting on and doing the word for word, but then having that opportunity for chatting.
Yeah, well, they love you too. And these sessions are Get a Klu in 52 for speakers with myself and Sue. Sue is my co-author, certified integrity game coach. And I am Jeff Klubeck, founder and author of The Integrity Game. The 10 points are the first 10 tips of the book. And then we got 42 other tips that we're working through. So next week is tip number 16. We'll continue breaking down this equation that we've introduced over the past couple of weeks. And my gratitude goes out to any of you out there that were watching, staying with us, or if you watch a recording in the future, we want to interact with you. We want to hear from you. Let us know how we can help. But for now, thank you, Sue, for everything. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Have a great week.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.